bookworms, my name is Celia and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about the books that I've been wanting to read for a long time and I would really like to have read them before I turn 25. I'm sorry if you can hear some sort of echo. For some reason it's like really echoey in my room, which it usually isn't, so I don't know what's different. Maybe I'm haunted. I hope it doesn't get picked up by the camera too much. But yes, I've seen this sort of list go around a little bit of like X amount of books I want to read before I turn however many years. So I thought that the next sort of milestone year that I'm gonna turn is 25. If you don't know, I am turning 22 this December. I really wanted to make this kind of list as well because there are a lot of books that I really would like to have read before I turn 25. Pretty much all of these books I've owned for a while and have been meaning to read for a while and just never got around to it, and I'm like, I want to read them really badly. I'm not gonna be going too much into what each book is about, just because, I mean, first of all, I feel like this video would be 5 hours long if I did that. Second of all, I'm really bad at remembering things about books, especially books that I haven't read, and these books that I picked up like in some cases years ago. I bought them and then I forgot what they were about. All I remember is that I really want to read them. So these are the 25 books that I really would like to read before I turn 25. And if future Hilja is watching, you better have read these. I'm just kidding. I know I probably won't because I'm bad at sticking to lists. The ADHD life. First up, we have An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. This has been on my radar for a while because it is written by Hank Green, whose content I love. I've also heard that this is a book that's pretty easy to get into if you have ADHD or trouble with focusing. So I'm pretty intrigued to see what the writing style is like. It's YA sci-fi, I believe, and if I remember correctly, it has some sort of queer rep in it as well. I feel like I should be banned from saying I need to read this because that is a given. That is what this whole video is about. Then we have Aces Wild, a heist. As you can tell from the title, this is a heist novel. It takes place in Vegas. The most intriguing point for me is that it has an all asexual friend group. I'm always excited if I even like see a hint of an asexual character in media. So the fact that this is gonna be an all asexual main character cast, it makes my little ace heart very happy. I'm assuming it's gonna have found family in it, because if it doesn't, then I'm suing. Just the fact alone that this kind of book can exist is just awesome, and I am really excited about this book. Then we have Afterlove, which is a sapphic book that you can probably tell from the cover of it, honestly. And it's about these two girls that are a couple, I think. But then one of them dies, so it deals with ghosts and stuff, and I've heard that this one is really sad or emotional and it will make you cry. I cannot wait to get my heart broken by some sapphic ghosts. Then we have this absolute behemoth of a book, A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. This is the prequel to The Priory of the Orange Tree, which is an epic fantasy that has sapphic rep in it. And it's also a very thick book. It's been a second since I've read Priory. However, I've heard that you actually don't even need to read Priory before reading this book, so I'm figuring that it's okay that I don't remember like anything. This came out earlier this year and I got it pretty much as soon as it got released. And I haven't picked it up yet because I'm scared. I'm scared of reading this book that's almost 1,000 pages. I know, shocking. Then fifth on the list is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. And this is a complete coincidence that this is the fifth one. I am doing this in alphabetical order, or at least somewhat resembling alphabetical order. I tried my best, but I didn't double check, so if there's a mistake there, then that's all me. But yeah, this is a fantasy, and this one is just like really highly rated, and everyone speaks amazing things about this book. I feel like it's a really prominent book in the fantasy genre, and I've had my eyes on it for a while, and I've been intrigued to read it for a while. Then we have Harrow the Ninth. This is the sequel to Gideon the Ninth. I believe the tagline for that is lesbian necromancers in space. And it's a book that you read and you're just like, what is going on? But the reason why this one specifically is on the list is because this is the book that people generally tend to say is their favorite when it comes to this series. This is the book that I see people like hyping up. Not to say that people are saying bad things about Gideon. It's just that this one seems to be like the golden child. And I'm like, how can it get crazier than Gideon? I'm a little bit scared to find out. Next up, we have Hell Followed With Us. I believe this is a horror story that involves religion and transness. I know that this comes up a lot on like queer horror book lists, and I've heard amazing things about it. Then we have the Jasmine Throne. This is another sapphic fantasy, and one of the big reasons why this is on my list, I mean, other than the fact that it's a sapphic fantasy, is the fact that it starts with a J. I have this personal project of mine to read books that start with different letters, and J is the only one that I actually don't have a book for yet. So I want to read more J books, or just books starting with more uncommon letters. Then we have Last Night at the Telegraph Club. This is a sapphic historical fiction that takes place in 1954 in Chinatown. And I know that this is a book that's really highly regarded in the sapphic book community, and I am just so intrigued to read it. Back to fantasy, we have The Last Sun, which is the first book in the tarot sequence. And honestly, the tarot sequence name is the major reason why I picked this book up. I myself am interested in tarot. I know like a little bit about it, but I'm not too well versed into it, but that whole thing is my jam. And so when I heard about this book, I was like really interested in it. This one will be familiar if you watched my TBR game video. It is Legendborn. Now I already have this on my TBR for this month, but I'm including it in the list anyway because it is a book that I really want to read. And that way also I can feel really accomplished to have a book that I've crossed off my list really early. I think this is one of the more mainstream fantasy books that's written by a POC author. And I have just heard the most amazing things about this book. I feel like everyone loves this. Then we have a sapphic space opera called Light from Uncommon Stars. I believe this has something to do with violinists and apparently donuts and immigrant culture as well. And also the cover is really pretty. Then we have Long Way Down, which is a book written in verse. And I've read a few books written in verse, but I definitely would like to read more of them, which is one of the reasons why I picked this one up. And I think it takes place during like the course of 7 seconds or 7 minutes or something like that. I might be mixing that up with a different book. However, I think that was this book. Then we have a book that starts in a similar way, but has a very different vibe. It is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. This is written by Becky Chambers, who wrote one of my, if not my favorite book, A Psalm for the Wild Build. So the fact that I haven't read this one yet makes me want to smash my head against the wall. Not literally. This is another queer space opera, and it is like wholesome, has found family, and I'm listing all of the qualities of books that I like, and the author has written one of my favorite books ever. I think it's because of the fact that it sounds so perfect to me is what makes me scared to pick it up, because I'm really terrified it will not live up to my expectations. Next on the list is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is mainly on the list because I love the Grishaverse. Specifically, I love Six of Crows, which is written by Leigh Bardugo. And so I feel like I kind of have to read this other book by her. I have to see if I like her writing in other worlds as well. Then we have Our Wives Under the Sea, which is a novella, I believe. It's also horror, and it is sapphic. It's about these two women who are married, and one of them has just returned from a deep sea mission, and something went wrong during that mission, and it's like about the aftermath of that. Now this book I literally cannot read even if I wanted to, because I lent it to my dad, so I don't have it with me right now. Then we have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang's books are really popular, Babel especially. blew up. Obviously Poppy War as well, people really like this trilogy. I think it's trilogy. I know that this deals with a lot of heavy and dark issues, and it's supposed to be like a really emotional book, but I have heard that it is really good. And I just feel like I have to read something by R.F. Kuang because I feel like I'm missing out. Then a very different tone, we have The Prince and the Dressmaker, which is a wholesome, cozy, queer graphic novel. I think it's fantasy as well. It's one of the first queer graphic novels that I heard about, and it has been on my radar for a long time, and I just never picked it up. This is a really popular book, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I think this might be the most rated book out of the books that I own on Goodreads. Even so, it has like a really high average rating as well, so that's pretty impressive. I know that this is a historical fiction that talks about Evelyn Hugo and the different husbands she had. This one, maybe not the most popular book by Brandon Sanderson, but it is Skyward. And the reason why it is on here is because it is written by Brandon Sanderson, and I actually haven't read a single book by him, even though he's one of the highest regarded fantasy writers at this time. And you know what book I'm putting on the list? Skyward, which is a sci-fi, because I have to be different. No, it's because I saw this at a bookstore like years ago, and I was like, oh, I've heard of Brandon Sanderson. Oh, this is space. I didn't know he wrote about space. And then I picked it up. Everyone loves Brandon Sanderson. I need to read a book from him. I need to see what the hype is about. Next up, another extremely popular book, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is a queer Greek myth retelling. Pretty much everyone has read this book. Even one of my friends is like, I love that book, and I'm like, I'll read it eventually, I promise. It's just, this book is just so hyped. And I also know that not everyone loves it, but I need to see where I stand. Then we have Sorcery of Thorns. This is another fantasy, and I believe that this is a standalone. And to be honest, I do not remember much about this book, but multiple books by this author have been under my radar, and I own 2 of them, and I was debating on which one I was gonna put on the list. And I just went with this one because I've owned it longer. And also because it's a hardcover, and it's such a pretty cover. We love Charlie Bowater covers. I can always recognize the art. I'm like, that art is so pretty. Oh, it's by Charlie Bowater, isn't it? Winter's Orbit is the next one. This is another space opera, and it is queer. I think a big part of this book is like the political intrigue of like political alliances. I think it might have like a marriage of convenience type of deal, potentially. The penultimate book is The Witch King. This is a fantasy book, and I know that this has a lot of different queer reps. Well, at least one of the characters is non-binary in this, and I have heard great things. Now finally, the last book is another chunker. This one is like 1,000 pages long. XX. As I mentioned, I have my own personal project of reading books starting with different letters, and you can imagine that X is not a very common letter. So when I was searching for books beginning with X, this one came up, and it really piqued my interest. First of all, I think the cover is pretty cool, and it is a sci-fi book. I don't know if it is a space book, but I do know that it has something to do with NASA and maybe aliens. But that alone isn't the selling point. The reason I bought this, I'm actually gonna take the jacket off to show you the inside of it. Oh, it has like, I didn't even notice this. It has like binary code on it. You can't probably see it, but it's like really subtle. And that's really cool. But it has like unique formatting. These aren't really good examples. All kinds of different stuff. I actually don't know what the best way to show you guys is, but yeah. So that is the reason why I got this book. I'm gonna put it down because it's really heavy. And yeah, as a graphic designer, I love when there are unique formats in books. It's one of the reasons I love the Illuminate files. So I'm really excited to see another one of those kinds of books. But yeah, you can probably guess the reason I haven't read it yet. It's because I'm scared. to read a 1,000-page book. But I just know that I want to read it so bad. That was it for this video. This video was a big mess, so if you're still watching, thank you so much for sticking through with this rambling. If you've read any of the books on this list, feel free to let me know what you thought. I will probably have different reading tastes when I'm 25, so I'm probably gonna watch this video 3 years from now and be like, I don't want to read any of those. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up, and I hope to see you again very soon.